Before we begin talking about anime, I just want to apologize if you guys hear some rumbling in the background. There's currently a massive thunderstorm going on, and I haven't spec'd very high into weather magic, so I can't really do anything about it. I apologize. That out of the way, let's talk about some anime, specifically what I believe is the most underrated shonen. Now, underrated is not a term I throw around often, especially in the context of anime, where 9 times out of 10, a Zoomer's underrated as fuck series is some seasonal garbage eating cringe. So when I say that today we're going to be talking about the most underrated shonen in my opinion, just know I genuinely mean underrated. I'm not just saying like, oh, it's underrated because I like it. I think it is underrated. Not to say that people think it's bad. I actually think the average opinion on it is pretty good. It's just that I don't see nearly enough people talking about it. So welcome to my fanboy rant about Stray Dogs. You're probably wondering, why do I think not enough people talk about this? Well, I'm in quite a few discussions, especially I used to be when I was on Kickback, we talked about shounen anime a lot. Shounen was primarily what we talked about all the time. And we had tons of guests on, people in the chat. We constantly were talking to people about shounen, and I think maybe one person brought up Stray Dogs ever themselves. It's just never brought up. I talk to people about anime all the time. I have tons of comments about anime, Discord, everything. I never see people talking about Stray Dogs. Now, I would classify Stray Dogs as a slow burn anime, one that gets better over time. And for that reason, I'm willing to bet that a lot of people probably didn't get super into it back when season 1 came out. I'm sure everyone can relate to the agony of having to constantly assure your friends that something gets better. No, dude, just trust me, it gets better, it's worth it. That sucks having to do that. And first impressions tend to stick around. So sadly, I think a lot of people probably remember being a little bit bored and just never came back to the anime. In fact, I have a friend that fits this description exactly. When I brought this video idea up to him, he wondered what I was talking about because he remembered this show as boring. And don't worry, do not worry, I killed him on the spot. He can't hurt everyone again. But I think there's a lot of people out there like him that remember this as being like, I was kind of bored by that when I saw the first few episodes. It probably wasn't that good. What I personally look for in an action shonen like this is interesting powers. Well, I look for a lot of things, right? I look for interesting powers, well-written characters, and as stupid as this might sound, cool villains. Having a well-designed and intimidating villain goes such a long way for me in shonen. Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress, at least I think that's how you pronounce it, is a good example of an anime that I was really intrigued by, but the main antagonist just didn't do anything for me. Now, obviously that anime turned into a shit show for more reasons than just the villain, but that's kind of irrelevant. I never would have thought that cool steampunk Attack on Titan style zombie anime could be boring, but they made it boring and bad. A problem that a lot of shows, a lot of anime run into with the villains is just 1 or 2 people from the villain's organization or group, usually the leader or leaders, are good, and the rest are not very compelling characters. The first example I think of, the first thing that comes to my head when I say that, is none other than Execution from Bleach, the leader of which, Ginjo, happens to be my favorite character from the anime. Now, I could do a whole video about how Ginjo is the most shit-on anime character from Bleach, or the most shit-on character from Bleach, but he is, in my opinion, a super sick character. But the problem is, everyone else from Execution, aside from maybe his right-hand man, kind of falls flat. They're not very interesting, they're not very cool, and so the villain organization as a whole doesn't really do anything, even though they got a cool guy in there. Not the case in Stray Dogs. At least to me, the antagonistic groups live up to the badassery of their respective leaders, if you will. Especially the Port Mafia, the Guild. Both the leaders and members of these groups are super powerful. There's a ton of variety in the powers they have. Mori, the leader of the current leader of the Port Mafia, is the perfect mix between an unhinged psycho and a calculating mastermind. He reminds me a little bit, and I hate to say this because I don't usually think it's very useful to compare anime, but he kind of is going to hit a similar note of Hisoka for you, I think, if you're a fan of him. I still remember when we first see Mori in action, Ogai Mori, the leader of the Port Mafia, and he's up against a guild member, and he almost makes them have a heart attack just by, vibing out. I mean, he just glares and looks at her, and she's just oh my god. Francis, the guild leader, is also pretty sick. He's big money wins. Now, if you remember my list, one of the things was villains, and one of the things was cool powers. Now, powers in Stray Dogs are another reason to love this show. There's such a wide variety of powers, and similar to My Hero Academia, how you use your power is often much more important than anything else, than the actual potency of your ability. I could honestly make an entire video breaking down the powers from Stray Dogs, and actually I kind of want to, so maybe I don't dive into too many specifics in this video. I get 2 for the price of 1. But I won't leave you hanging like that. The best way I can very briefly describe the overall power system to you is it's sort of like a mix between Hunter x Hunter and My Hero Academia, but even that, it doesn't really do it justice. Like I said, I don't usually like to compare anime, but I was trying to think of a way that I could tell it to people who've never seen this anime but have seen other anime. It's kind of like a mix between those two shows, and I don't mean that to imply that it's a ripoff in any way. It's just hard to describe it briefly. Abilities in the show can be anything, but they can also be trained and made stronger. Just like the villains, Stray Dogs is top tier in this area as well, at least I think. When it comes to shonen power systems, I can probably count the amount of them that are this interesting and cool on one hand. It's probably like 4. Now, the best for last, my favorite part of this anime. On top of everything else, this anime has some of the best, most fleshed out characters I've ever seen. And again, this is coming from a guy who for a long time primarily watched shonen and has seen like every anime in the entire world. There is not a single character with meaningful screen time that is lacking. Everyone has their own traumas, motivations, secrets, growth, everything. Sadly, that is a rarity in anime. Most of the time, we only get this for the main character, the villain, and maybe a couple of friends of each of them. Sometimes there's also like a weird, enigmatic third party, but that's really more of a relic of the past. So if you're someone that is constantly disappointed by the lack of character development in other series, then I would highly recommend Stray Dogs because, like I said, I don't think there's a single character that I can think of that has a lot of screen time and is a meaningful character that doesn't get a huge amount of development and growth. One constant criticism I see about this anime is that people just do not vibe with the main character. And that's fine. That's fine if you feel that way. I may disagree and think that you're a stinky idiot, but I kind of get it. He's often described as weak and whiny, but I'm actually a big fan of how much our little tiger boy has grown and moved past his trauma. Not to spoil anything, but the way his childhood came full circle was just absolutely chef's kiss. It was beautiful, fantastic. One complaint I often have about shonen main characters is that it feels like their growth is either completely unrealistic or just non-existent, but in Stray Dogs I never felt like that. I felt like we were just watching a real boy that we loved grow and change. So basically, this video is just an excuse to be able to rewatch Stray Dogs, and if I was able to convince some people to watch it as well, then even better. It has everything I think a great shonen needs except the huge fan base. Literally top tier in every area I can think of, and for the most part, it does things better than its much more successful shonen contemporaries. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you the day after tomorrow with a new video, and I might make a kind of not sequel to this video, but sequel in spirit of the most overrated shonen of all time. So let me know if I should do that, and maybe I will.